This particular night, things were pretty normal.
That's just that a person didn't stay focused.
Everything was down and you could just feel a steel in the air. It was like you could just know something was wrong.
It's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
Useless. It shouldn't have happened.
I've got an image burned into my mind that'll probably be there forever.
Someone lost their life for nothing.
We lost a friend, and he's missed. Folks miss Eddie.
On January 18, 2001, Eddie Adams, OSB mill shift electrician in Elkin, North Carolina, lost his life as a result of burns received from the explosion of a 2300-volt starter. Eddie left behind his wife, 2 children, and countless friends. Eddie's friends and co-workers produced the following program in order to share their thoughts and to prevent a tragedy like this from ever happening again.
As we go through this door, we're entering the MCC room number 1, which is the location of the starter can.
Well, anytime you go in the MCC room, you're supposed to have a partner. And anytime you've got a job and you can't do it safely yourself, you have to ask for somebody to take, hey, come help me a little bit.
And that's one of the first mistakes Eddie made. He came in here, which is the same room, by himself. Nobody even knew where he was at.
I'm not saying that nobody never goes in there by themselves, I'm sure they think, well, maybe I can fix this right here real quick. I'll go check it out.
As we come through the MCC room, we have most of our 480-volt cans located in this area. As we get down further toward the end of the MCC room, all of our 2300-volt and high voltage type of starter cans are located down in this area.
They had an issue with the hog motor cutting out, and that's what Eddie was working on at the time of the fatality.
Hog grinds up our bark and waste material. A hog was down, and the hog had failed.
It wasn't a tremendous upset condition. It wasn't a life or death situation. It wasn't something that was so critical to the process that it had to be done right now.
This is the actual starter can that Eddie came to work on. As you can see, it's no longer in operation. When we were at the point that we were able to go ahead and start putting the equipment back online, this was damaged to the point that we couldn't use it any longer. When Eddie came in to work on this piece of equipment, he had to have pulled the handle down on the starter to do a lockout. This particular piece of equipment, you can't open the door unless you disconnect the breaker.
There's no way that you can open that can without throwing the disconnect down. You can't do it. So he throwed it down. He did that part right. But once he got in there, he throwed the breaker back up. So then it was live.
When he did that, he used a multimeter and was using a multimeter, and we feel like that maybe he was trying to check the fuses to see if he had a blown fuse.
He thought he was on 600 volt, had a 600 volt meter, put it across phases of a 2300 volt system.
Even though it was marked all over it, and there were all kinds of indicators used in a 2300 volt panel, he didn't recognize it.
You can't check 2300 volts with a 1000 volt meter.
As he attempted to do that, whatever he did inside this box created an arc with an explosion. And as the explosion, or as the starter exploded, of course, a ball of fire came out into Eddie's face. We found Eddie's hard hat here on the floor, along with his multimeter that had blown up. It had melted. We know that from the impact that Eddie was slammed into this cabinet here. We also found evidence of some tissue and some hair on this panel itself. When the explosion took place, every light in the mill went off, so we feel like it was probably dark in here for a few seconds, and Eddie was on fire.
The dryers started on fire. They got fire suppression signals that the suppression system was activated. No one knew what had happened. Most people assumed there'd been a power outage. Well, there had been. But immediately no one understood that that power outage is because the circuit was shorted through Eddie Adams.
Eddie turned at that point and went in this direction. There was a small table type device sitting here, and it appears as though Eddie either slipped or bumped into the table. We found his watch, we found some coins and some bits of clothing laying on the floor here. So it appears as though Eddie might have slipped and stumbled into this table. He got up and went in this direction, starting towards this door. And we feel like that Eddie realized that he was not going to be able to get out this door. So he turned and started back in this direction. There was a roll-around toolbox sitting here with some plastic covers over the top. And as Eddie went by, he swiped that top, and it actually melted the covers there. He also started on through here, and again, we found bits and pieces of clothing throughout this area. He opened this door and went out into the blending area.
It's pretty obvious to tell what he did. He took his meter, probably laid it on the floor down. He had to squat down more likely, and you can see from the heat right here where the fireball started. He put his meter on there just like that. As soon as he did it, that was it. It blowed. The fireball blowed right there between them. And you can see the heat where it's melted the fuse. It's actually welded the fuses. Here is welded the stabs together. All the fireball was right here in front of his face. And when it blowed up, and the energy from that fireball caught him on fire. And the rest is pretty much history.
This guy was burnt plumb out of his clothes. I mean, there was a T-shirt band, the waistband in his belt was all that was on him. I mean, that was all that was on him.
He took it upon himself to go in and try and do the last steps of troubleshooting before making a decision to change the motor. And for whatever reason, what he was working on was not foremost in his mind at that time. And what he was doing was not communicated to others, and others didn't ask questions of Eddie.
I think in this case we had somebody who was really anxious to help. As the pastor said at the service, Eddie would drop anything to help you. If you needed some help, he would drop whatever he's doing and come over and help you. He'd do that at home, he'd do that in the community, he'd do that all the time. And I think that behavior of I'll run and fix it, I'll take care of it, because I know what to do, I'll run in there and I'll fix it, is a behavior that we have to watch.
As he came through the door, it appears as though he slipped again. We also found some fluids, body fluids, some skin, and again, pieces and parts of his clothing. He proceeded to go up next to the form line and down the form line. And of course, as he was going down the form line, it was still dark. And in different spots along the form line here, we found bits and pieces of his clothing.
You know, some of them told me that they had seen him from across the mill, and seen something that was on fire, and thought, well, what is that on fire? And then go to look at it and see that it is somebody.
After they put the fire out on Eddie's body, they brought him into the first aid room here, where they started to administer first aid. Of course, at this time also, a control room operator was on the phone with the emergency response organizations in the area.
Every time the phone rings now after 9 o'clock in the evening, the fear of God runs right through me, because it could be the same phone call again. And boy, that's a phone call that nobody ever wants to get.
Jeff and I drove over to Kathy's house. We had to call Kathy from the driveway, inform her that we needed to talk to her.
Eddie was conscious, and he was still focused and was able to talk with our first responders and with the EMTs.
And really, until we got to Winston and talked to the doctors down there and kind of seen how the trauma team acted when we got to him, or when they got to him, I knew then that this is pretty grim.
As he talked with the EMTs that transported him to Winston-Salem, he also told them that he thought he was on 440 or 480, and that he had really screwed up big time.
Carelessness, really. it was something that you just don't rush into. Anytime you're dealing with electricity, you just don't rush into it.
You almost have to try to get hurt. You have to do something that violates the policy, something that violates common sense. You know, you have to do something totally off the wall to get hurt.
Again, Eddie was alert and was able to talk with the EMTs as they were transporting him to the hospital. And the next day, Eddie died.
Elkins said, no, don't come. We don't want anything to do with the film. Leave us alone, let us be. Don't invade us. And when they thought about it and they realized that there might be a little window to help the rest of the company and the people we care about from going through this, they said, okay, I'll take some more pain.
If by doing the video, if we can prevent one mill or one person from having a tragic event similar to this one, then it's been worthwhile.
But I thought maybe if I could just say anything to help somebody in safety, just think twice about something before you do it.
Am I ready to be focused? Am I ready to go in and do my job and do it safely so I can go home at the end of the day and get in as good a shape as I was when I got there?
Someone lost their life for nothing. That they lost their life for nothing. And I don't want that to happen again. Not to anybody. Not at my facility or anybody else's facility.
Anytime you want to test your electrical circuits to make sure that they're not energized after you've locked it out and you're going to be working on it, you always want to use 2 meters. One, you use the tick tracer right here, and if below 600 volts, you can hold it without the hot stick. But when you go above 600 volts, you need to hold it with the hot stick. And also use a 2nd meter anytime on 480 or below that. Once you get above 600, then you're going to want to use this hot stick always. You're going to want to wear your proper rated gloves and your face shield. And keep in mind too, you always want to partner with you, either one 600 above or below.